Hi everyone, Arnold here, santamuertemagic.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. The topic of today's video is blood offerings in Santa Muerte Magic. This is a topic which I know will be controversial, but it is also something that I have received questions about on more than a few occasions, so I make this video to satisfy the curious. First, I'll address whether blood offerings are compatible with Santa Muerte. My short answer is yes, I think the practice can be compatible. Uh, to be compatible does not mean to be required, and in fact, if you have never considered making a blood offering to Santa Muerte, then you should never feel compelled to do so. The reason why I say it can be compatible, however, is because of one of the foundational principles that I apply to everything I write about Santa Muerte. And that foundational principle is that Santa Muerte accepts us all. If Santa Muerte accepts us all, then she must also accept those of us who choose to make blood offerings, just as much as she accepts those of us who choose to not make blood offerings. On the topic of offerings in general, my usual advice is to offer what you yourself would like to receive. In the case of a blood offering, if you are considering whether or not to make a blood offering, I ask you to consider how you would feel if somebody decided to make a blood offering in your name. How would you feel if somebody collected their own blood and offered it to you as a symbol of the love they have for you or as a symbol of the respect they try to give to you? Would you be flattered, or would such a gesture make you cringe? If the idea of somebody making a blood offering to you does not sit well with you, then I do not think you should make a blood offering to Santa Muerte. A big part of the act of making an offering is the thought and intent which you hold when the offering is made. So long as an offering is made in love and with respect, then it will be received with love and respect. But that idea of love and respect is significantly diminished and probably completely destroyed if you essentially say, here, I think this is disgusting and I want you to have it. Or here, this is trash and I don't want it. Why don't you take it? How would that strike you if that was the attitude somebody else had when they gave you a gift? Would you feel like the gift was made in love? Would you feel respected? Personally, I would not, which is why I avoid making offerings to Santa Muerte, which I myself would not like to receive. With that out of the way, for those of you who have stuck with me so far, and who have made up your mind that a blood offering is something you want to do, you do have some options for making a blood offering. First is to offer your own blood, and second is to offer an animal's blood. And to be clear, I think that these should be offered in such a way that does as little damage and invites as little risk as possible. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's take your own blood, for example. If you are a cisgender woman of a certain age, then you probably experience bleeding on a cyclical basis. Since this is blood that is already leaving your body, you are not causing any damage, nor accepting any additional risk in order to make an offering using this blood. You might be someone who, because of a medical condition, has to poke your skin in order to test a sample of blood at home. My father did this before he passed away. He was essentially a diabetic who had to regularly pierce his own fingertips. If you can relate to this, if you are already bleeding yourself for a medical reason, then allowing an extra drop of blood to fall at your Santa Muerte altar requires no additional damage that you weren't already causing and presents no additional risks that you weren't already facing. Another option for making a blood offering is to get a tattoo. This would be, I think, a special offering, something you don't offer on a regular basis, maybe something in exchange for a big miracle that was granted, or perhaps to mark a special occasion that only comes once a year or once in a lifetime. On my website, I've referred to the act of getting a tattoo in honor of Santa Muerte as a skin sacrifice. But the reality is that getting a tattoo requires an amount of blood to be spilled. So you could easily consider a tattoo a type of blood offering. And while it is true that you are technically causing damage to the skin in order to get the tattoo, tattooing is such a common practice that when it is done by a professional, somebody who is at least trained and preferably regulated, the damage you experience and the risk that you accept are so low that this method of a blood offering could be considered a relatively safe option. Note that in this case, if you were to get a tattoo, the blood would not be collected and presented to Santa Muerte. Rather, it would be spilled in her honor and left behind after the tattoo was complete. If you do not want to offer your own blood, another option is to offer animal blood. And I apply the same rule mentioned before of doing as little damage as possible and accepting as little risk as possible. So if an animal is already going to be killed, or if an animal has already, or if the blood of an animal has already fallen from the animal's body, I see no problem with collecting it and incorporating it into an offering to Santa Muerte. It might strike some of you as odd, especially if you are like me from the big city, but believe it or not, there are still people out there who kill their own food. And if you are someone who kills your own food, then you are doing no additional damage and accepting no additional risk by collecting animal blood that is already going to be spilled or that has already been spilled. If you choose this method, make sure you take the necessary precautions to avoid making direct contact with the animal's blood, as it can carry bacteria and viruses that could be harmful to humans. Now, if all of the options I've detailed so far do not appeal to you or are not possible for you, but you are still drawn to this idea of a blood offering, I recommend you get your hands on something called blood meal. And in Spanish, it's actually called harina de sangre, which translates to blood flour. That's FLOUR. But you don't cook with it. Blood meal is a type of natural fertilizer that, if it is organic, if it is unadulterated, is made with 100% animal blood. From what I've read online, it's a byproduct of slaughterhouses. So when animals are slaughtered and processed, the blood that is spilled is collected, freeze-dried, packaged, and then sold as fertilizer. So if the idea of offering blood at your Santa Muerte altar appeals to you, this would be a great way to incorporate that energy and that imagery authentically at your Santa Muerte altar without the need to directly collect blood from yourself or an animal. And just FYI, leaving pure blood meal out on your altar might attract bugs. So to eliminate that risk, you could sprinkle a few dashes of blood meal into whatever liquids you're already offering at your altar, like into a glass of water, a glass of Coca-Cola, or a glass of tequila. Overall, my biggest concern with this entire topic, with the entire topic of blood offerings, is safety, which is why I've made the recommendations I've made so far, so that if you are intent on making a blood offering, you can do so in as safe a way as possible, in a way that does as little damage and presents as little risk as possible. While I would never try to tell someone what they can and cannot do with their body, in good conscience, I simply cannot recommend cutting yourself. I cannot recommend DIY phlebotomy, using a syringe to extract your own blood at home. The skin is a very important organ. It serves a very important purpose. And anytime the skin is broken, you accept a risk of injury that cannot be undone. Now, once the blood is out of the body, next comes the issue of storing the blood. As a general rule, I would treat every drop of blood as you would treat poison or a loaded gun. So if you wouldn't leave poison on your altar unattended, if you wouldn't leave a loaded gun on your altar unattended, then you should not leave a blood offering on your altar unattended. Even blood meal, which is freeze-dried and sold over the counter, can be harmful if ingested. So I would recommend you treat blood meal with an abundance of caution. I recommend the same abundance of caution, even if you are using your own blood. That you treat your own blood as if it is not your own blood, which means avoiding direct contact with it once it's out of your body. You may wonder why such a strict recommendation. Your own blood cannot give you something that you don't already have. And the reason is to prevent you from spreading droplets of your own blood um, through community spaces. Just because your blood won't cause harm to you, it could still cause harm to other people. So you don't want to touch your blood and then shake someone's hand, or even touch a doorknob or a water faucet. Some blood-borne pathogens can live for several hours outside the body, even in dry blood, which is why you don't want to unknowingly spread droplets around spaces you have to share with other people. So not only should you avoid direct contact with blood, but you should also wash your hands thoroughly after working with blood. Yes, even if that blood is your own. Having said all this, personally, I do not practice blood offerings. I never have, and I don't think I ever will. I myself would not be flattered or honored if somebody made a blood offering in my name, so I would not make such an offering to Santa Muerte. Also, I do not think there is anything that can be accomplished by a blood offering that could not be accomplished by another type of offering. I think I could bring myself to make a blood offering in the form of a skin sacrifice, in the form of a tattoo dedicated to Santa Muerte, but that would probably be it. Again, this is my personal opinion, and whether or not you choose to exercise the practice of blood offerings in your Santa Muerte devotion, in your Santa Muerte magic, is entirely up to you. Okay, so I think I've shared everything I wanted to share. In summary, blood offerings can be compatible with Santa Muerte devotion, I think, as long as it is something that you yourself would like or would be happy to receive if it was performed in your name. If you choose to make a blood offering, I suggest a method which creates no additional damage or no additional risk, such as if blood is already leaving the source for one reason or another. If blood is something you want to incorporate into your altar without the need to collect it on your own, I recommend investigating blood meal, which is a type of plant fertilizer made from animal blood. And finally, treat any amount of blood with the utmost respect and with the utmost caution. Treat blood as you would treat a poison or as you would treat a loaded weapon. While I personally do not practice blood offerings, I do recognize that everyone's journey on the path of Santa Muerte devotion is entirely their own, and every relationship with Santa Muerte is completely unique. That's all I have today, guys. Hopefully, I've explained everything clearly, but as always, please reach out to me if you have any questions. You can find me through the Patreon Messenger system. There's also the Discord chat server and the contact form on the website. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Until next time, bye.